Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. I'd like to welcome you to Young Martin's Reels. Some of you might have watched the video that I did last night on the Shakespeare 2081, or 2081, where I changed out the bearing in it. Well, I was talking to Chris today, and Chris suggested that there was the same bearing in this Shakespeare 2062. And I thought, man, that thing's a lot smaller. I can't believe the main bearing is the same. Well, popped it apart. Guess what, folks? It's the same bearing. So this is the one I cleaned out real well earlier this year and quieted it down tremendously. But I had a brand new bearing. Why not throw it in? And I did. And yeah, much smoother reel. So that's 2 new bearings I've done. Today's project is going to be this Daiwa 1000C. And we're going to get started on this one. This one I'm hoping isn't going to take too long. And I'm going to try to keep everything in focus or in view. Let's start off by taking off the spool. And then we're going to take off the handle, which of course, I keep wanting to unscrew these like a pen, and they don't unscrew like a pen. They've got a screw on this side over here that holds it in. Ooh. It's tight. All right, and remove the handle. And while we've got this out, let's go ahead and see. That does not want to come loose. Let's try it again. Nope. Let's try this one, which is a little wider. See if we can unscrew this. There we go. Okay. We're gonna pop this out. Spray a little WD-40 in it. Move it around a little bit. Clean it out just a little bit. All right, then I'm going to come back, put some oil in here, put a little bit on the threads over here, and screw this back down. And that one's ready to go. Okay, now we're going to take the side plate off over here. Okay, it's all 3 screws out. They all should be the same. And they are. Let's take the side plate off. All right, and what do we got here? We've got a bushing, bronze bushing. It's got a lip on it, so I would not suggest replacing this with a bearing. I would leave that alone. There's a shim. We don't want to lose the shim. More than one. There's 2 shims there. Okay. And I don't think this gear is going to come out just yet. And it's not. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this back in. We're going to rotate this down until we can get to this screw. Okay. All right, and now we should be able to slide the axle shaft out, which we do. That's some crusty old grease on there. We're going to clean that up, make it look better, make it operate better too. Okay, now we should be able to take the axle out, or the main gear. Oh, what do we got? Uh-oh, well, that's not good. We've got a big spring laying in here, and I have no idea where that goes or what it's supposed to be for. Okay, here's our bronze bushing for the other side, which is much smaller than the first one. Here's the first one. This is the second one. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Let's remove. Oh, okay, I know where what the spring's for. Okay, we'll get to that in just a minute. Let's go ahead and take out the crosswind block. and the crosswind gear. All right, now this spring is most likely going to fit over here for our anti-reverse, because see how it just pivots back and forth. All right, I don't know how well you can see there. I'm hoping that this has a hole. I think that may be broken. Do I see any extra parts in there? Let's find out. I don't see any. Let's run a magnet over the cavity and see if any pieces of wire pop onto it. No. Okay. But the spring is magnetic. Okay. So that's good. We'll see. This may be broken. This may not be broken. We'll have to figure it out in a few minutes. Okay. And I think that goes in there and over to there. Well, let's find out. If this is correct, this should go into here and hook into a hole right there. And it did. Okay. And then once that's done, this should, oh, didn't stay hooked. This should hold this in place while I hook it. Okay, and then you're going to want to hook this into that little slot right there, which it almost went in just then. Okay, let's try it with it down. Okay, I think that got it hooked in. Okay, there it is. I'll push it down just to make sure it's in. Okay, did you see how that fits in there now? Yeah, that spring was just laying in there. It was not connected to anything. Okay, and it may pop loose when we go to scrub this and clean it out, but at least we've got it in there. We figured out where the spring goes and what it's supposed to do. All right, let's go ahead. Look for our 10 millimeter. I think this is it. There we go. Okay. Take the rotor off. Let's see how this performs. It is performing well. So I'm going to do it like I said I was going to do the other day. We're going to spray it with WD-40, and I'm going to take it down and use the air compressor to blow it out. Okay. And it leaves us with 3 screws here. All right, there's that one out. Let's have a look at this bearing. It's quiet. It's sealed on one side and open on the other side. So this is another piece that's going to go down. I'm going to flip it over like this, and I'm going to spray it real good with WD-40, and we're going to use the air compressor to spin this bearing up. And we'll use that to help clean it out. We'll get any dirt and stuff that's in there out using that method. So, that said, I'm going to set down my cleaning board. And set the parts on it that will be scrubbed on this board. And I'm going to spray them all good. And then I'm going to leave them to soak while I take this and this down to be cleaned with the air compressor. I got some dirt in here I think needs to be scrubbed out a little bit with the brush before I take it down. Okay, we're back, and I blew that out pretty well, I think. I'm going to take the side cover off right here just to see inside it, just to see if I got the majority of the dirt out. And okay, let's see. Well, overall, I would call that reasonably clean in there. So I'm going to run a cotton swab through it and leave the rest of it together. And we're going to add a little bit of grease in here for the spring. We're going to wipe off the side plate and slip it back in. Okay, and of course I went a little too far. I'll just back it down. There we go. And let's put in the screw. Okay, and this feels really nice. It's snappy. Now this side over here does not have a spring, so we're going to pop it off real quick and take it apart and see how balanced the spring is. See if it requires tweaking or if it is as good as it really feels. And it feels good. Okay, and it actually does have a spring in it, so don't take that side, don't pull it the rest of the way apart. I didn't think it did, but it does. And but there's no action here. It's not squeezing in too tight, and it's not out too popping out. So that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and put that on. All right, we're going to go ahead and oil it. And then we're going to go back, work this in just a little bit. All right, we're going to go back and we're going to take the roller assembly apart now, if the screw will come out. And it did. Okay, don't lose the washer. It has a washer on it right here. Don't lose that, but look inside it and see if it's dirty. This one is dirty inside. And let's take a look at the roller. Yeah, this roller was jammed and it was dirty. So we're going to take and clean up the post that the roller rides on. And if it were rusted or anything like that, we would use a something to clean that off with, but we didn't need to. It's in pretty good shape. Let's go ahead and clean out the inside of the bushing. And I'm going to put a touch of grease. Oh, you can't see it. I'm going to put a touch of grease right here onto the roller post. And I'm going to slip the roller back on. And it should roll, and it does. And now I've got a little bit of dirt inside this washer to clean out. All right. And we're going to set that back on to the roller, set the roller in place, and put the screw back in. And then when this is done, the roller should operate again. Okay. And does. All right, so there we go. Got that. We're going to set the rotor over to the side, and we're going to get back to putting this together. Okay, now I did a reasonably decent job of cleaning out this bearing. And we are going to oil it now. And it's actually going to get oiled twice, once before we put it in and once after. And we are going to grease the pinion gear. That's a little too much grease, so let's back that off a little bit. There we go. Put some grease on the pinion. And then we're going to set the pinion gear back inside. And now, Chris and I discussed this. I want to take a look here. Sometimes you have difficulty pulling these bearings out. Well, when I pulled this bearing out, it was a little bit stiff. And Chris and I discussed the option of, one, you could take and put grease around the inside edge of this so that when you pull it back out next time, it's been greased and it should come back out easily. The problem with that is if we put this in here with that grease and leave it for many, many, many years, that grease hardens into like a varnish. And once you varnish that bearing in there, it's almost impossible to get the stupid thing out. So I tend anymore to not grease that when I put them back in. I set them in place, drop them down in, and I don't mind adding some oil and let the oil sit in there. Dried oil does not turn to varnish, at least not nearly as quickly or as easily, to me anyway, to my way of thinking. I could be totally wrong. All right, got that done. Now, perform a little housekeeping here. All right, now we're ready to put the bearing retainer back on. It's just going to sit right here like so. Set it in place. Put the 3 screws back in. Next thing to go on is this rotor. We'll go ahead and get that taken care of. Just sit it in place like so. Put on the nut, and this nut's got a rounded side and a flat side. The flat side goes down. Okay. The next part we're going to put in is going to be this bushing. Goes in with the skinny side down, like so. Then we're going to set in our oscillation gear. After that, we're going to put in the oscillation block. All right, next part's going to go in is going to be the main gear. Set that in. Let's make sure our spring is still installed over here, and it is. Okay. Set our gear back in. There we go. Now it's time to drop the axle shaft back in. Okay, we're going to oil the axle shaft. Drop that in, rotate it around a little bit to spread the lubricant, And now we've got to line it up with the oscillation block. There we go. Once it lines up, you should be able to line up the hole like so. Get that lined up. Line up the axle shaft with the hole and the oscillation block. And then we're going to put the screw back in. Okay. To make a few people happy, we'll go ahead and we'll put a drop of oil in each of the holes. Since this is a metal block bodied reel, we'll put a little bit of oil in there so that it won't seize up in there. Then we're going to take and put these two shim washers back on to the main gear. And at that point, we can go ahead and reinstall our bushing on this side over here. And this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky, maybe. All right, see how this spring is done on this? Okay, it's staked in over here, and its whole purpose is just to hold that forward, okay? But this will just fall forward if you let it, okay? So let's go ahead and see if we can get this put back in here so that it meets up properly with the anti-reverse dog in here. All right. Okay. Well, let's see if there's a, that won't work. Okay, it has to go that way. Okay, so I'm gonna have to hook it on there. Let's go ahead and let that sit on there. And let's hook it on the anti-reverse under here, and then let's slide it into place. Okay, I don't know that that's gonna work yet, so let's check it before we go bothering to. Okay, flip it the other way. All right, there we go. It's working, so let's go ahead at this point. Put this, did you guys not see that? Let's back it up one more time. Okay, and take this out. This post right here has got the hook right in there. See that cleft right there for the anti-reverse? It's got to sit right in that little notch right there. Okay, so we're gonna take this arm, we're gonna sit that and get it hooked on there first, and then maneuver the rest of the cover onto it while holding that in place. Okay, and then check it before you tighten the screws down. Make sure that you have anti-reverse override, which we do, and make sure you have anti-reverse, and we do. Let's put the screws in. Okay, let's put the handle back on. Tighten the screw back down, and it's a long one. Don't over torque it, but make sure to tighten it enough that it's not going to come off. Okay, no play there, or very little play. Okay, let's put the cap back on that covers the screw. All right, that brings us down to the spool. Let's go ahead and pop the cover off of the spool, or the retaining spring. Don't let it shoot out. That's a pretty thin one, so it shouldn't shoot far if it does shoot out. Okay, we're going to remove the washers. And there's a fair amount of dirt and crud in this one. So let's go ahead and clean it out. All right, that should be sufficient. Let's take a look at our washers. We got some steel, ordinary steel washers instead of stainless steel washers, so they're going to need some work. We'll clean those up with a wire brush. Okay. And these drag washers are extremely gritty. All right, these drag washers appear to be some kind of plastic or nylon. I'm going to go ahead and give them just a touch of grease. I'm going to use a little Cal's Universal Drag Grease on them. Just a touch. Just enough to have a little bit on the surface, like that. Okay? We're going to put in drag washer, keyed washer. It's called keyed washer because it's got the flat, squared off looking point and hole in the middle. Okay, that's the key. Drop it in. Okay, I'm going to do another drag washer over here, just a little bit of grease on it. Okay. And our eared washer goes in. It's called the eared washer because it's got the 2 ears on it. We're going to slip that inside. Okay, and now we're going to do this last little drag washer. And look, just a little dab of grease is all that's there. And we're rubbing that in good. It's going to have just a thinnest coating on it. And then we're going to put in the last keyed washer and then the retaining ring. Okay, make sure we get that in properly. Okay, next thing is going to be this drag knob. Now this drag knob should have a little protective cap that goes over it here, but it doesn't. So we're not going to worry about that. We're going to go ahead and put it in without it. And let's go ahead. All right, now the bottom of this does not need any oil or anything else because there's no moving parts there. It's just a plastic piece that does the clicking. So we're not going to oil it. We're going to go ahead, slide the spool on. There we go. Put on our drag knob. Tighten it down a little bit. There we go. Anti-reverse is working. Veil trips. Let's back it out a little bit so we can see it. And anti-reverse override works. All right. So there you have the Daiwa 1000C spinning reel serviced and almost ready to go fishing. It does need this line stripped off. It's got some kind of braid on it, and that braid is all tangled up and stuff. So we're going to strip that off and get it back down to just plain ordinary spool. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that, and I'll come back to let you know I actually did it. All right, the old braid is now stripped off, and the reel's ready to go. And all it needs a new line put on now, and off it'll go. For those of you who liked the video, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. Tell me what it is you didn't like about the video. If you have any suggestions, listen, folks, I love comments. I will usually respond within a very short period of time, unless you do it late at night, in which case then it'll be morning. But I usually keep an eye on it pretty good. So if you got any comments or questions you want to ask, feel free to ask them in the comment section. For now, that's Rick Stivers of YoungMartin'sReels, signing out.